The wind sliced like razors that morning, whistling against the glass walls of Manhattan's most luxurious medical tower. But Valeria Stone didn't feel it, not really. Sitting by the window, gazing blankly at the distant traffic, she thought how ironic it was to be alive in a body that was dying. At 32, she had conquered everything the world called success. Founder and CEO of Neuralink Systems, her neural mapping software had revolutionized both medicine and finance. At 28, she was on the cover of Forbes. By 29, her company was worth over $600 million, but none of it mattered anymore. 4 months ago, in the middle of a board presentation, her body simply collapsed. The diagnosis: idiopathic autoimmune pulmonary fibrosis. In simple terms, her body was destroying its own lungs, and there was no cure. The best doctors in the country, Swiss specialists, experimental treatments in Germany, hyperbaric chambers in Japan, none worked. The oxygen tank she dragged behind her now wasn't just a machine, it was a sentence, a countdown. 2 weeks left, maybe less. Everyone expected her to disappear to a private beach, a mountain chalet, or some healing retreat in Bali. But Valeria Stone, the woman who had spent her life chasing power, excellence, perfection, was done hiding. For the first time in years, she felt something close to stillness. And in that stillness, a question haunted her. What was the point of it all if she left nothing that truly mattered? No children, no partner. Her parents had died in a helicopter crash 5 years ago. Friends had become appointments. Colleagues were loyal in appearance only. She had considered adopting once or twice, but someone always said, "You're young, you have time, focus on your career." And now, there was no more later. That morning, something compelled her to get up. She adjusted the nasal cannula, secured the hose to the oxygen tank, and walked step by step down the polished marble hallway, through the revolving door and into the city. She walked without direction among honking cars, rushed faces, and lukewarm coffee cups. Then she saw him, small, still, like a shadow pinned to the sidewalk. A dark-skinned boy with enormous eyes stared at her from the base of a corporate glass tower. Barefoot, dressed only in ripped shorts, his body showed clear signs of starvation: marked ribs, swollen belly, thin arms caked with dry city dust. His coiled hair fell in tangled clumps. His expression wasn't fear or sadness, it was resignation. Valeria stopped. Her chest burned from the walk. Her breathing was wheezy and sharp, but she crouched anyway, despite the weight of the oxygen tank, despite the cold concrete. The boy didn't move. Their eyes locked. And in that silence, something strange happened. She didn't see a homeless child. She saw herself. The loneliness, the invisibility, the ache of being irrelevant in a world that pretends to care. "What's your name?" she whispered, barely audible over the hiss of her oxygen. He didn't reply, just blinked, looked down, then up again. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a single piece of candy, the only thing she had. "Here," she said, extending it with a trembling hand. He didn't take it. Instead, his gaze drifted to the tube running from her nose. Then, wordless, he stepped forward. Gently, he touched the plastic line with one small, dirt-covered finger. "I'm dying?" Valeria said quietly. She didn't know why. "But I don't want to go without doing something that matters." Then the boy spoke. "I know how to cure you." Valeria blinked. Had she heard him right, or was her mind playing tricks? "You... what?" "I know how to cure you," he said again. Calm, matter of fact. No emotion, just truth. She stared at him, not laughing, not believing. Something in his eyes, calm, ancient, impossibly still, was not childlike. It was as if he'd lived lifetimes. A man in a suit walked past and muttered, "Crazy lady." A woman pulled her daughter closer and walked away. But Valeria didn't notice the noise anymore. She only saw him. Of course she didn't believe it. He was just a child. What could he possibly know? And yet, something in her refused to walk away. She came back that night. He was still there. She brought a soft blanket, a small backpack with clean clothes, and her driver, who waited nearby. When she knelt again, he didn't move away. She lifted him gently, and to her surprise, he leaned into her chest like he'd waited all his life for that embrace. His name, she would later learn, was Amari. He was 5 years old. He didn't remember his last name. His mother had died in a fire when he was 3. He hadn't seen his father since. He used to sleep near a bakery's back door until the owner was arrested. No one had come for him. No one had cared. When Valeria filed for emergency adoption, the whispers began. "She's losing it," a nurse said. "Why would a dying woman adopt a child?" Another asked. Some tabloids published snarky headlines. "Terminal tech queen adopts street kid with healing powers, sad PR stunt." But Valeria said nothing. She had no energy for superficial judgment. Amari became her constant companion. He slept on a small cot beside her hospital bed. He helped carry her oxygen tank when she was too tired. He sat silently through her treatments, whispering things under his breath, and then something impossible happened. Her coughing stopped. The tightness in her chest began to fade. Her oxygen levels improved. The doctors examined her charts in confusion. "This isn't right," one said. "It must be a fluke," another suggested. But Valeria knew it was him. Amari had a habit of placing his tiny hand gently on her chest and closing his eyes. He would whisper words in a language she didn't recognize, maybe a village dialect from his mother, maybe just something he made up to feel safe. And then he would hum, always the same melody, a low, soothing tune that felt like warm wind wrapping around her lungs. One night she asked, "What's that song?" He smiled for the first time. "Mama used to sing it when I was sick," he said. "I think it helps." There was no scientific explanation, no miracle cure, just something greater than logic. Love, presence, healing. Weeks turned to months. Valeria no longer needed the oxygen every day. Then, not even every week. Her appetite returned, her strength slowly rebuilt. Her care team was baffled. "You're not just stabilizing," her pulmonologist said during her 3rd-month scan. "You're regenerating. Your lungs are healing." Tears filled her eyes. But she didn't cry because of the scan. She cried because, for the first time in her life, she wanted to live. Not for her company, not for money, for him. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Amari, and Amari had her. By year's end, Valeria walked unassisted into the adoption court for their final hearing. No oxygen, no tubes, no fear. Just her and the little boy holding her hand, dressed in a clean navy jacket and light-up shoes. Reporters waited again, but this time they didn't laugh. They watched in awe as the once dying woman smiled at the cameras and said, "He didn't just heal my body, he healed my life." Amari was later enrolled in the best school Valeria could find. She sold her mansion and launched a nonprofit to help abandoned children. Every evening, no matter how busy her day was, she would hum Amari's tune as she tucked him in. They had saved each other.